Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the BBG and Overmortal. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. We're on the way to 7,000 and we're getting closer every single day. Now, before I get started on this beginner guide, don't forget to join the BBG Discord. Link is in the description. There's a lot of players there that have been playing for a long time, as well as a bunch of people of various levels of top-up, so they just have insights that I simply can't provide. So join the Discord and you can ask questions in there. I'm sure they'll be more than happy to answer them. But anyway, before we get into it, I have to preface this with, there's a good chance that I will miss some things or miss a tip or trick, but I guarantee you that they are going to be put in the comments. So people that know what they're doing and people that have come this far have generally been following me as I've been playing Overmortal. So if I have missed something, write a comment, okay? Write a comment. So if someone comes to this video after the release in the US region, they can just go into the comments and see a bunch of extra tips and tricks and stuff like that. That's basically the aim here. But anyway, now as always with videos like this, I'm going to start from the left of the UI and move over to the right, and then I will go to the top and down. That's basically how this is going to work. This is going to be a long video. That's just the way it is. Okay, that's just the way it is. I talk a lot, but at least some of it is worth listening to, probably. So when you first enter the game, you're going to be presented with a choice, Corporia or Magicka. When you break these two down, pretty simply, Corporia is melee, short range, Magicka is, well, magic, long range. Corporia has more of a focus on health, and Magicka obviously on MP. Both have their pros and cons, obviously, but Magicka is stronger than Corporia in the short term, but by Spirit World, Corporia does tend to ascend above Magicka if you haven't built your Magicka character well. That's just the way it goes. The other difference is that you're going to get different equipment that has different effects. But that decision is completely up to you. Melee or magic, that's basically what it breaks down to. So let's just get right into it. I have swapped to my noob account before I moved to a different server many moons ago, just simply so I could get the full breakdown of the mortal world. And this is going to be one of two parts. The second part is only going to be taking place in Voidbreak Plus. But for the majority of people watching this, chances are you've just started or you're still, pre-incarnation level, basically. So that's what this guide is going to be aimed at. Next one is much higher level, so let's just focus on the mortal world for now. So, starting from the absolute left, the only reason you can see Apex rankings on the mortal world, I believe, is because this server is really old. That's really more of a Spirit World thing. So I'm actually just going to leave it completely out of this conversation, basically. And we're going to go into the simple things. Mail, we all know what mail is. This is basically where you pick up everything that's going to give you a reward, including events and stuff like that. This includes that if you didn't log on for the day and you log in the next day, you're going to get a bunch of stuff in the mail from stuff you've missed if you didn't happen to collect it. And you can also get the maintenance notices in the notices themselves. I do recommend you try reading. If there is a maintenance notice, read it, because when maintenance occurs on this game, the servers go down for several hours, up to like 3 or 4 hours. So it's good to know, otherwise you're just going to get angry when you try and log on and you can't. So it's good to know about that. But that is relatively self-explanatory. Let's get into the harder stuff, shall we say, or the stuff that's less straightforward. Now, Demon Spire. Put simply, you've probably played other games where there's a tower version of something that you have to fight through. The higher you get, the more rewards you get. This is essentially the same, but the difference is it caps out at 1,500. The Mortal World caps out at floor of 1,500. It's going to take you a while to get there. You can only do 80 challenges a day. I strongly recommend you do as many as humanly possible because A, doing a lot of floors a day is an absolute crapload of spirit stones. I'm going to call them spirit stones instead of spiritium, because that word just fumbles out of my mouth, okay? But the other thing you get from it is ability knowledge, and that's going to be important later because that's for skills, and we're going to get to that. But right now, baby steps, baby steps. So there's several things about challenging here in the Demon Spire that I think you should at least be aware of. Everything to do with this in terms of progressing through it is relatively straightforward, but it's really easy to get to a point where you're actually stuck fighting something and you just simply can't beat them because they're too strong, or something like that. And that's when the tips and tricks sort of part of this guide is going to be more effective and helpful for you. So obviously, first of all, you can put it into 3 times speed. That's nice. I got clapped. Oh no. So the thing here is there's generally two types of levels that you're going to get stuck at. And those are basically super strong individual enemies that you just simply can't out DPS. and the other one is where up to 4 enemies spawn. Now, the up to 4 enemies spawn one is probably harder than the individual one, but either way, there is a way to actually... It's sort of a way to game it, I guess you could call it, but the first way, when you're firsting something super strong, immediately turn it to manual and just run away. Now, this might seem counterproductive because I can't attack or anything like that, but as you do this, you'll see that the pet is actually doing damage to it. Now, don't get me wrong, this has limitations as well because you've only got a certain amount of time before you can actually kill the boss. And I don't recommend doing this when you're at floor 100 or whatever, because you will smash through the first few hundred floors. This advice is much more for when you're more into the thousands and you actually get properly stuck at these kind of levels. But the other one is when you have 4 enemies that spawn and you just get absolutely clapped every single time. When you challenge it, you skip it, you challenge it, you skip it, and you just get clapped. The best way to do this, don't ask me why this works, but I have tested it literally dozens of times and it's worked every time. But when the 4 spawn, always target the bottom left enemy or the bottom right enemy. Just alternate between the two before you hit skip. And I guarantee you, for some reason, it increases the chances of winning. I don't know why that works. I honestly don't know why that works, but it works, okay? But anyway, as you progress through the tower, you're going to get various milestone rewards, basically. Auto fight, for example. Very nice. Now, this account's just so old that this stuff should have been active on it anyway. But once you reach these milestone rewards, the major thing is getting the Thunderbolt ability, which is the ability, when you're a young character here, you're going to grow in power pretty quickly, day by day, which means it's a lot of effort doing 80 individual challenges at once, so they instituted this other way of doing it where it skips. If your power is vastly higher, you can just straight up skip X amount up to where it starts equaling out again, which is very helpful. That's mostly helpful if you're a whale or if you're a free-to-play that's saved up and then you just happen to get some lucky Curios or whatever. But that's basically the Demon Tower ability. The higher you get, the more you're going to generate every day. You do not generate Spirit Stones from this. You only get the rewards from clearing a floor. You only get these Spirit Stones from clearing the floor once, but what you generate per hour increases the ability knowledge generated per hour. That's the most important part here. Again, we'll get to why that is. Rankings is relatively straightforward. I mean, it's whoever gets to 1500 first is forever enshrined in first place. So I do recommend you try and push as hard and high as you can every single day with Demon Tower. It's just kind of worth it, honestly. Now, reach is one of these milestones, and this will go from 100 up to 1500, and you're going to get all these rewards. Obviously, that's amazing. Just remember to come back in, check it, but you're going to get a red exclamation mark above it if there's something to come and check anyway. Goals is just another milestone-based reward for when you reach the milestones of the Demon Spire itself. So all of that is relatively straightforward, but it is absolutely possible to get stuck in one place for quite a few days at a time if you're just simply getting unlucky. So those tips might be able to help you just push forward there. Arena, I mean, once again, we've all played games where, why am I 9th? That's hilarious. What? Surely not. Okay. Anyway, we've all played games with arenas. You've got to verse people. When you kill someone, you take some of their points. When they attack you and kill you, then they take some of your points. But if you attack someone and you fail, you lose some of your points and they gain some of your points. So it's a vice versa thing. It's kind of hard if you're not consistently able to beat someone to actually remain high in the arena. That's just something to think about. You only get an X amount of attempts per day. So you do want to verse people that, you might actually beat. Inevitably, you're going to get farmed by people stronger than you. That's just the way it is. And with that being said, if you're on a server, and I think for the newer servers, they are going to be quite popular, you do want to rank as high as you can, just simply because of the daily reward gives you premium currency, and the season reward is obviously an absolute bulk amount. Now, this is top 10 rewards, obviously. I don't know why I'm in the top 10, but this is the top 10 rewards for Arena. 600 Fatevillion, let's just say the season ended. 600 Fatevillion for that day is quite a lot of premium currency, and they are very generous in giving premium currency, I'm not going to lie to you. Now, moving down into Market. This is a big one, because Market's split into 2 places on the Mortal world, the Market and Fatevillion. We're going to do Market first and then Fatevillion. I strongly recommend that you do at least 5 of these a day, refreshes, because the first one's free, but you do want to buy important things here. And those, I mean, the biggest ones are blue and above things, if you've got the spare spirit stones for it, which is going to be hard when you first start to have spare spirit stones to actually get them. But I strongly recommend you buy blue and above stuff. It's just worth it, especially when you just get to, for example, a new realm and you need to make new equipment. This market is probably the best place to get trash materials with which to make new realm equipment with. Honestly, once you reach a new realm and you need to make a new realm level equipment, just come to market and get these green materials. For example, this helps you make relics, this one's weapons, and all for the virtuoso stage. Because when you first reach a new realm, you're not going to be able to gather a lot of materials fast or immediately as you would like. It's got to be farmed over time. That's just the way it is. So I just say, come here, buy this, and then go make a green item and equip it, because it's going to be more effective with a higher damage cap. But that is a good way to go about it. Same with pills, blue and above, buy them. If you're lucky, you'll get some blue equipment for your new realm. That is lucky though, I will say that much. I also recommend, if you've got the spare spirit stones, and this is the tough part, you're going to have to decide where you want to spend the spirit stones that you have. But if you've just started, then your best bet is probably going to be trying to buy blue and above ice heart pills or your pill level, because each realm that you go up, the pill is called something slightly different. But these basically give you cultivation base, but we'll explain that in a bit. The point is, check market every single day. It refreshes once a day, about 8 hours after midnight server time, I think 8 AM. So you do want to try and use as many as possible. Again, you're going to be limited by spirit stones, so you've got to pick and choose which ones you want here. Fatevillion is a lot easier to handle as a free-to-play. In this case, I strongly recommend that you get at least 2 of your main path cultivation bags a day, at least. If you can refresh it and get another one, and you can afford that with your Fatium, then I recommend doing that. Getting through these early levels quick as hell is just a better way to go about it. It'll just be faster. You gain a lot of power from going up realms. This game has a massive focus on actually just getting up realms. For all the rest of it, it's kind of hard to justify spending Fatium on this if you're not buying a lot of stuff and generating a lot of Fatium. So I can't really sit here and recommend doing it. I have, in my desperation, bought a purple breakthrough pill. That's definitely happened before, when you're just sat there waiting for trying to make a pill and you can't get one, but there's one sitting here. You got the spare Fatium, and then you can buy one and use it and hope it works. But other than that, I honestly only get the cultivation bags here. You can decide for yourself whether you want any of this other stuff, but it might look cheap here now, but let me tell you, that Fatium will disappear really quick. I got 9.5k. Couple days of reckless spending will absolutely destroy that. It'll disappear so quick. Now, before we move into Treasure Hunt here, I just want to explain all of these other ones that have popped up, like Dueling Enthusiast, Archsmith, Schwanhan, Shifu, and Gardener. Those are kind of like random events that'll pop up over the course of a day as you play. And they're relatively self-explanatory because you can simply just click through them and they just tend to give you stuff, with the exception of the Gardener, who's going to help you in your Abode, and the Archsmith, who is completely irrelevant for Mortal World. You can only see him here, I believe, because this account is just old and there's plenty of people in the Spirit World at the moment, so we're going to ignore him. The Dueling Enthusiast is someone you want to click on as soon as you see him every time, because you get basically free blue cultivation pills, so you want to duel him every single time. Always duel him. And Shifu is main story quest. You do want to do as much main story quests as you possibly can, because it's realm locked. So you can only progress as far as your realm has gone, basically. But you get amazing rewards from main story quests, so you do want to have a focus on doing that basically every time you go up a minor realm. Now, every now and then, Lady Anne's going to pop up as a random event. When you're on the Mortal World, it tends to just be this invest event, but I'm pretty sure you can also still get Anne's shop. But it's still worth doing the absolute maximum amount she allows you to invest, because you sometimes get event items, which is what that just was. Let's get into Treasure Hunt. Treasure Hunt is relatively straightforward. You get a free chance to draw this pool of rewards, which are called Curios. They're basically artifacts and they give you stats. But you get one free draw a day. When you first start, you're going to get heaps and heaps of exotic draws. So there's not really much of a reason to worry about this, but the harder part is which ones to level up early, because you're not going to have the resources to level them all up. So we'll get to that. I'm just going to do my free draw just because, why not? 20 epic stardust. Lame! That's basically what's used to actually level up a Curio, which is not really the best. Star up stones, that's for starring them up. and reveal stones, that's for a shop. But I'll go into deeper detail about Curios later on. This is really just the gacha of the game. And it can be addictive. Do not be fooled into clicking explore 10 times with 2000 Fatium, because there are better places to spend that on, okay? And we'll get into that. Now, treasure, as you play the game, and you will, and I'll say this now, you will never get as many draws in this treasure trove as you will between the time that you start this game and before you hit Void Break. You will get so many of these. But, and this is the exception, when you reach probably Incarnation middle, and honestly even earlier than that, if you don't really have a need to open them, save up all of it, because these rewards transform from Incarnation to Void Break. So bear that in mind. Below Incarnation, use all of these all the time. It's great extra rewards. Once you hit Incarnation, start being mindful of the fact that by the time you reach Void Break, you are going to ascend into another dimension, I suppose, of both power and possible rewards. So these have a chance of dropping Curios too, as well as a bunch of other useful daily stuff. So they're absolutely useful for when you first hit Void Break. Just make sure that you have a stockpile for when you hit there. It is absolutely worth it. But again, I'll reiterate, all the way up to Incarnation, open these treasures all the time. 100% worth it. Once you reach Incarnation, probably the end of early, start of middle, stop using this stuff. And then just wait till you reach Void Break. And then once you reach Void Break, and you've opened up the maps associated with Void Break, then you can open these maps. For example, and I'm going to explain that because that was confusing, I know. When you go into the Cosmic Atlas, for example, which is basically the premium treasure reward, you'll see these maps. Now, these maps correspond directly to your realm. And in each realm, each new major realm, you get 3 new maps to farm in, basically. Now, when you first reach a new major realm, you have to actually go through map conditions and bosses to unlock each of the 3. Now, it might have changed at this point so that as soon as you reach Void Break, all of these maps will change to the Void Break maps. But when I first hit Void Break, I had to pass the 3 maps associated with Void Break before I could open all of my treasure chests. And I'm going to explain more about how that works when I get to the maps themselves, because this is taking too long and we need to move forward. Shop, this is where the reveal stones are spent. I would honestly recommend targeted buying here, because these are all Curio shards. You reach X amount of shards, you can combine it, and you get the relevant effect that comes with it. It's going to be expensive here, but again, from the start of the game to Void Break, you will never get as many reveal stones as you will in that time. Like after Void Break, it slows down because your goals, your rewards, and your passive rewards from just leveling up and stuff slow down until you reach major milestones. So where you spend your first reveal stones in that first block of the game is probably quite important. It makes a difference at least. So I would definitely, for example, get this extra relic damage bonus to towers. This game is massive on PvP. That's an absolutely brilliant curio to have. Only problem is it's 250 for 5 shards. You see I've got 1500. You will have thousands of these reveal stones and it's easy to just spend them all. Another tip here is that you start saving them from Incarnation. Basically, as soon as you hit Incarnation, you start saving them until you reach Void Break, because again, the Seeker Shop will change and you will actually get Curios of a different level. Or at least I should say shards of Curios from different levels, because the treasure hunt will expand as you play through the game and you'll start having a tab of possible draws that you can start playing gacha with, basically. But that's irrelevant right now. The shop is pretty straightforward. You don't want to buy any of the top 3 things. Even as a whale, I don't think you'd want to buy any of the top 3 things. You ideally want to focus on the Curio shards here. Read what they do and decide accordingly. It will take me like 10 hours to go through all the Curios, so that's not happening. But read what they do and act accordingly. Abode or a bonus is extra cultivation based. That is an amazing role to have on the Seeker Shop, so I'm going to get it. I'm never going to play this account again, but I'm definitely going to get that, because that's a 10 out of 10 curio. That's what's going to make you level faster. So when you read them, think about the kind of character you're trying to build. Think about where you want it to go. Read them. For the love of God, read them. The goals, Same thing here. You reach milestones in the gacha and you start getting rewards and stuff like that. Pretty self-explanatory. Chaos rankings, this is this is a simple thing. The top battle power in the game is going to be ranked at the first, and then it descends. I would be first with my main account here. Damn. But this is all just ranking. Total battle power, the top Corporia, the top Magicka Taoists, and then the person who has the most wealth, the person who has the strongest pet, the strongest sect, the strongest weapon, armor, accessory, relic, all very straightforward, and it's good to basically get a grasp on who's got what weapon. One of the benefits here, especially if you're performing at a high level, shall we say, and you're versing strong people, you can actually just straight up read what their weapon does, and from that basically see where they get their power from. That's a really good fan. That is a 10 out of 10 fan for perfection. But anyway, straightforward, to the point. Bounty. Again, this is relatively straightforward. You need to submit or fight somebody in order to complete the bounty. I strongly recommend doing it. It's going to be a little bit more difficult when you first start to get bounties going, just because you're going to want to be using everything that you make. And this Crimson Powder and Ice Heart pills, they're actually cultivation-based pills. And you're basically exchanging that for technique points, which is what we're going to get into later. But try and do all of them. Just remember, if you've only got blue or above pills on you and you try to submit to this, it will use it. It will use your blue pill, and you do not want that. That is an absolute waste. Don't do that. Make sure it's just green. Okay, that's a big one. I used to do that and I didn't realize it was happening. And that was a sad moment for me. Now, Fatevillion, we've already been through. It just got combined with the market a while ago. Now, Bio, this is also quite straightforward. It's really just the main story. So as you go through the main story and you complete X amount of them, you'll start unlocking these rewards. There is a lot of them at the moment. There is quite a lot of them. But again, this just ties back into every time you go up a minor realm, make sure you do as many story quests as you can. They're not hard. You're not going to get stuck on them, but it's extra rewards. So try and do as much as possible. Now in the bio area, you do have the chronology of how your server's gone, basically. When you reach these milestones as a server as a whole, you will receive these rewards. That's relatively straightforward. Keep an eye on that, because that's a lot of free Fatium, and that's going to come in very handy later on. Now, records is literally just a list of things that you've done. When you reached a new major realm, when you created a legendary artifact, when you started the game itself, you're probably not going to look at this a lot. It's not really necessary, but it's there, right? It's there. One of the other things that actually kind of ties into what I was talking about with the Demon Tower is these challenge ones. So every day you'll have the option of versing 2 town bosses, which is what they're called. And generally speaking, it's easy to kill the first one until you reach, your cap. This one's going to clap me, I suspect. Let's just speed it up and have a look. No, okay, I clapped that one. So generally speaking, the second one is where it's tough. And if you fail to kill it the first time, it will disappear and you have to wait till tomorrow and you've got to start from the first boss again. Now you might think, oh, that's all right. You kill the first boss again, you'll get the rewards again, right? Which is true. Yeah, that is true. But the further you go in these town bosses, the better the rewards get. So you do kind of want to make sure that you're doing 2 a day. As much as possible, doing 2 a day anyway. But the thing is, with these second ones, they are vastly stronger, generally speaking. So the same process works here as it does with the Demon Tower. You just want to run. That's all. Now, obviously, my pet's not strong enough. My pet is just not strong enough. And what happens here when you just run is that your pet will continue attacking and the boss itself will just chase you. And that's it. One of the benefits here, though, is that pretty sure there's not a time limit here, because I've tested this and it took me like 5 minutes to kill one boss and it was fine. But that was in the spirit world. Those bosses are Nirvana. The point is, if you've got a pet that's strong enough, I obviously haven't been leveling my stuff on this crap account. You probably have been. And focusing on your pet's obviously good, but doing this just means that the boss can't just get a beat on you. Your pet's just going to hound that thing to death and you will get the rewards for the second area. I would say this technique is more for the higher levels as well, when you're in the 20s and 30s. Like, this is only challenge 5, number 2. You're going to breeze past these pretty damn quickly, but just keep this trick in mind because it works, man. It straight up works. It's hilarious that it works. Now, auction, you're not going to need to worry about this realistically till Nascent Soul, first of all, obviously. And the other thing is, you're only going to use it if you create a legendary that you're not going to use, which, as a free-to-play, that's going to be rare, man. It's going to be very rare. And as a free-to-play, you're going to have been creating legendaries that are too low level for the people that would buy them anyway, generally speaking. It might be a bit different when the US servers open because there might be a massive, like, greater influx of players and a greater amount of people that would actually buy it. So you can only sell legendary items here. But the problem is, only people that spend money on packs can actually buy them because there's a secondary premium currency, and it's called Destium. Now, that is only possible to get through actually buying packs, and that's the only currency used in Auction House. So when you sell an item in Auction House for Destium, you're actually going to get Fatevillion as a reward. So it is a nice little way for free-to-play to earn a bit of extra premium currency, but the chances of you earning that premium currency from people that buy packs is pretty low, in my opinion, because they're going to have had it anyway, and the only way that they would buy that is if they maybe started late and there was a bunch of stuff on auction and they could just buy it then. Point is, Auction House is not that important for most people. Now, Beastmaster, my favourite person. This is where you get your pet eggs, basically. You're going to get an absolute crapload of pet eggs over the time that you play, just from rewards, dailies, newbie events, and stuff like that. There's no point in saving them. Use them all. Use them as you get them. It's better that way. Because the essence you get from actually using the eggs, you can exchange for pets themselves. And the pets themselves are an absolutely massive help in battle. But I'm going to go more into that later. Now, you can break down your pets for epic essence, which is purple level essence, which is what's required to actually exchange for a pet here. So if you get a pet you don't want, you can just immediately eliminate it and get 10 purple essence of varying types immediately back, and then you can maybe purchase a different pet if you really want to. But we're going to go more into this when we actually get into Abode, because that's where the pet interface actually lies. But brass tacks, use all the pet eggs you get. Simple. Now, perks. This is simply straightforward as well. It's dailies. Do your dailies, collect the final reward. It's absolutely, it's great value. You don't really need to do a lot every day to reach 100 daily active, and it's so much rewards for doing it. Like, this is probably the most generous game I've seen with daily rewards. It's crazy, actually. Same thing with weekly. The weekly rewards are absolutely nuts. It's draws, it's gacha draws. You want to get them. You just want to get them. All you got to do, read them and do them. It's very simple in that regard. One of the more complicated things is probably the Cultivation Road. I would say, you know, it costs 500 Fatevillion for the basic, but the thing is, you do get back 250 and you do get 2 draws. Those are the more important things to look at. All of the extra stuff is obviously nice, but 500 Fatevillion is quite a lot to spend. So I recommend you have a fortnight to get from 0 to 1600 activity. Now, dailies every day and getting your 2 weeklies done will absolutely get you to 1600, no problem. But I recommend waiting till you reach about 1400, 1500 daily activity so that you know you're going to reach 1600 for this cycle, and then you get 500% gains basic thing. But that is absolutely worth doing that. I do that every fortnight. It's 10 out of 10 worth it. Again, goals, these are just even more different. Goal milestones. And you're going to get a lot of stuff from this really quickly as you play the game when you first start. These rewards will taper off as time goes on, because you're just going to be stronger and stronger and the milestones are further and further away. Okay, character. This is basically where you're going to equip your character. That's a relatively straightforward process. You want to equip, the strongest level possible, because it's going to increase your power. That's quite straightforward. Now, eventually, you will unlock all of these locked ones. So when you've just started, there's probably a couple of extra locked ones here. You just have to increase your stage and you will unlock more. Basically, equipment slots to equip 2 more relics here and 2 more active Curios here, which are basically just like attack artifacts. So that's all relatively straightforward. Now, when you click on an item, you're going to have the option to upgrade it. You can star it up, I suppose. But you're going to need a lot of soul dust to do it. And it's a diminishing return thing. So If you have a green item that's plus 10 and you inherit that item, so when you, let's just say you have a green item and you've just made a purple item and it's like, yeah, this item's better, let's replace it. The plus 10 on the green item is going to go to like plus 6 on the purple item. That's just something to keep in mind. You will get a bit back, but you're not going to get 100% back. That's just the way it goes. So try not to level up anything below purple too high, because it's a bit of a waste, at least in terms of augmentation. Carving, this is something that I honestly wouldn't recommend doing below Incarnation because it's so expensive. You know, it's got to be at level 20, so let's just do that real quick. And you need Forge Stones every 10 levels in order to upgrade from 19 to 20, for example, as what just happened, but you will get extra stats for that, which is, again, many games that do that. But the carving itself is extremely expensive. You're not going to get a lot of this stuff to begin with in order to level it up. Now, you can do this if you're trying to be competitive. It will absolutely give you an edge, but just bear in mind it's diminishing returns again. So even if you have a purple and you get a better purple, but this one's been upgraded with carving, that carving is probably going to go down in level, which means that you've wasted quite a lot of things that you don't really have any ways to get. Now, don't get me wrong, you can upgrade this with items. So if you make blue items, you can actually use that in place of the carving quartzes and the gear spirits and the weapon spirits. But again, it is extremely expensive, and I don't recommend doing it on anything below purple, because even purple, when you finally get a legendary and you upgrade from the purple to the yellow, you are going to lose levels on it. That's just the way it goes. Now, Curio, this is a big one, but it is also very simple. Any Curio that you get from the gacha draw is going to come here, and then it'll just be a loadout, basically, and you can level them up from here. You can upgrade them with Stardust themselves, or you can star it up with Star Stones. Now, when you first start, I'm going to be honest, you're not going to have a lot of Star Stones, you're not going to have a lot of Stardust, unless you're absolutely smashing all the goal milestones and stuff, which is just as likely as it is unlikely. But the point is, if you're Corporia, you want to aim towards physical attack, physical penetration, but if you're Magicka, you want to aim for magical attack and magic penetration. Those are the two things that increase damage the most, the absolute most. Crit and crit multiplier are self-explanatory, but they will not give you as much battle power as those things for your respective main paths. You need to make sure that at least early game that you're focusing on your main path in terms of Curios, because if you don't, well, you'll be behind, basically, because it can be days and possibly even weeks before you get enough stuff back to upgrade a legendary Curio a level, because they're so hard to get shards for. But they are the absolute best. There is red Curios as well, but we don't need to get into that. But the main point is just focus on your main path. You don't have the resources to split if you're free to play. Just focus on one. Magic attack, magic penetration, or physical attack, physical penetration. Don't try and do both, because it won't work out well for you. When you reach a later stage, like when you're in the spirit world and you're much further in and you've got, for example, my main, I've got thousands of all types of resources for leveling Curios, but I don't have the shards. So I can afford to upgrade physical attack and physical defense stuff, even though I don't need it. It's just extra stats for me, personally, because I have nowhere else to spend it. But that is much later game, and it's not really wise to do when you just start. So just bear that in mind. Now, ability is a really, really, really tough one. Because, first of all, I'm not versed in Corporia abilities. I'm hoping that someone who's watching this can actually give us a breakdown of Corporia abilities. That would actually be really nice, because even my main is Magicka. But put simply, these abilities are what is going to aid your relics. So back here, these are actually either attack or defensive relics. So these ones are attack relics and these ones are defense relics. And that's what forms part of your DPS, and the abilities basically augment that. They can be spread into your standard. I mean, anyone who's ever played an MMO can pretty much break down these abilities to single target DPS, AoE, control, support, or debuff, basically. Now, I don't want to sit here and take up even more of your time with explaining each and every single one of these abilities in depth, because that will just simply take too long. But a good rule of thumb is to have a shield and a control, and the rest attacks. That is what generally seems to be accepted. But I do notice whales, or at least dolphins to whales, have a massive focus on single target DPS, and they maybe have one shield. They care about nothing else, which makes a lot of sense. This is a game that revolves a lot around attacks. So as much attack as possible is also another route you can go down, but you've got to experience the combat before you get a feel for what you need to use in combat. There's so many different combinations. It's absolutely brilliant in my opinion. But anyway, going into settings, now this is probably the most important part of it, because this is your casting order. Now, your casting order is important because, well, let's be honest, any kind of MMO, for example, you have a casting order. You've got a set amount of abilities, and you cast them in a certain order to get the most effectiveness out of them. This is exactly the same way. The only difference is that you want to click shield first, so that you are always shielded at all times, because shields seriously reduce the damage that you take, and ideally you want 2 or 3 shields. When you reach a higher level, this will be about 5 rows long, so you do have more options to put shields in. When you first start, 1 shield is probably enough, maybe an ability shield, and all the rest of your relics that you equip can be attacks. But again, that is entirely up to you. I don't think I can sit here and tell you how to build your character. Achievement up here is, again, very straightforward. You reach milestones and you claim the Ethereal Jade for them. Now, the Ethereal Jade, I mean, this is self-explanatory enough, but I'll explain Ethereal Jade. This little coat down here is for cosmetics. Now, you can go to shop and you can actually buy cosmetics with that Ethereal Jade. And you're going to get a lot of Ethereal Jade all the time when you first start anyway. Up to Void Break, you get shitloads. Just be aware of that. Don't just buy every single one here. You're probably going to regret it when you see something like this purple, for example. That's a character avatar, and it's free, realistically, if you can generate the Ethereal Jade for it. But what I do recommend getting I think it's every 3 days, get this Ethereal Jade bag. The reason for that is that you can get 300 to 1,000 back, and it only costs 1. So definitely do that. That's worth it. Now, Realm. This one's kind of a big one too, but the main thing to understand here is that it's split into 3 basically after the first realms. You can see at the top there, Foundation. The top, underneath the main name of the realm itself, that's important because it's going to allow you to understand what I meant when I said you have to complete the maps, for example. So this is Nascent Soul stuff. I physically can't go there because that's actually a realm above me. If I had just hit Virtuoso, I would be in Naraka. But from Naraka, I can actually go to Swordgrave and pass Swordgrave if you're strong enough to do it. There are different, basically, events that you have to complete before you're allowed to fight the boss of each area. These little events will lessen the further you get. Once you reach the Spirit World, there's not really many events left, which does make it easier to kind of just, as soon as you reach a new realm, you can just push through all 3 of the maps and you're fine. But needing to complete the events is basically mandatory. Now, another thing to notice is that with each main area for the mortal world, there is a different kind of thing. So, for example, there's Celestine here. There's Violetite down here, which is down in the connection area. The Violetite, Celestine, the Nethery Ice Dew, the Earth Vein Essence. All of these things, they're important because if you've played Immortal Towers, for example, and even if you haven't, you actually have to craft your own items that increase your backpack space, and those things are absolutely required to do it, and you can only farm them when your character is in it. That is something to be aware of. If you're up here, you can't get, for example, if you're looking for Nethery Ice Dew, you can only get it from Nethercliff. If you're in Varanus Island or Mount Mara, you can't get it. So you need to be in the area it says it's in order to get it, and you're going to need a lot of each of these kinds, and I'll explain why in a bit, but that's the basic breakdown of realms. Now, when you first start, you are going to see the Path of Ascension. This is basically, you pass the events of each one that I was just talking about, and you'll get points, and these points will add up to the Path of Ascension. Once you reach 100, you are now able to go to the Spirit World when you reach the end. Now, your clone is going to need to have reached Incarnation early. That's like the minimum requirement to actually get into the Spirit World, but I'll explain more about that later. This is going to be something that you follow until you reach the end of all the maps. So you can think of it more as like a guideline to Ascension. It's helpful to have there. But anyway, Sect. I am currently not in a sect. I wonder if I can just join one to explain it. Let's have a look. They're all nascent, so damn it! Wait, can I just join just like a random one? Come on, man. Haha! Suckers! Anyway, when you first reach sect, it can be kind of overwhelming because there's so much crap here, but a lot of these things you're probably, unless you make a sect yourself, you're probably not going to actually use a lot of them. Sect barrier and array are one of them. The sect barrier is in realm. You will see these wide areas: Southern Realm, Eastern Realm, Western Realm. In here is actually where you can farm citrine, which is an important resource in a sect. I'll explain why. A sect base will be placed in here, and you'll basically occupy a circular area that no one else can teleport into, and if they approach it, they'll be attacked if they're not in the sect, basically. And if you farm within the limits of the barrier itself, the sect barrier, you'll actually get an increase to your farming, which is nice, obviously. Array is more of a PvP thing. I'm not going to get into that because it's involved in sect clash. Now, Sect Duel is an incarnation thing. That's when you start versing other sects. It's basically a PvP 1v1 attack event, and you get 3 chances, and you attack someone, you get 3 points. If you lose, you get no points, and the final highest score at the end wins. And you can get lucky and verse a crappy sect, or you can get unlucky and verse like the top in the universe sect, or at least the top in your bracket sect, which would suck for you. But it happens, okay? It happens. It is what it is. Sect task is much like dailies. You really just have to click start and then set and forget. Even if you don't collect them by the time they finish, if you miss them and tick over comes, you can just collect it in the mail the next day. It's nice like that. Sect hole, this is basically just the levels. The level of the sect will basically allow you to get more bonuses. The higher the level of the sect, the better the Abode aura bonus, which is your cultivation-based generation. That is always important. I love how there's only one person in here. 7 days ago, yeah. No, I feel like that's hundreds of days ago somehow. But that's quite straightforward. Now, the sect clash. This is basically something all of a sect can go to, and you have to farm monsters and bosses for points. It's relatively straightforward, but the array ties into this in the fact that I wish I could show you the array itself, but I'd have to switch accounts for that. But for arrays, you have a central person in the middle of the array, and you can place sect members around it, and the person in the middle of the array actually controls it and can move around and attack things with it. It basically increases the middle person's power by the sum of every single person in the array. So you're basically making giant nukes to help you kill bosses with to increase the amount of points that you get. So these points, obviously, it's good to get 35k points every time Sect Clash comes along because it's free resources, man. It's free real estate. Now, library is something you're going to get familiar with because this is both where you get seeds, which is going to be important for farming, as well as you can see, those books. They are important because they are what help level your skills. So you can actually click on the ability and upgrade it, and it will obviously improve. It has milestones as well. You get to level 20, crit resistance plus 16%. Every skill has stuff like that, but to actually do it, there you go. To get to 20, I'm going to need 4 of these books, and they're found in the Sect library, and they cost citrine, which is what that currency is, and you can farm it in those white realms. Now, again, I'm not going to tell you which ones are best to upgrade because it's just a conversation that's going to go on too long, and this is already going to be longer than my Immortal Towers beginner guide. So there is that. Now, Sect Beast, this is another thing that's just more passive than anything else because the higher the level the beast, the more stats you get extra, basically. Every member in the Sect gets these bonuses dependent on the level of the beast itself. Very straightforward. Demon Bend Abyss, this is probably the place where you're going to generate the most amount of citrine, in my opinion, unless you are very active and you're farming in those white realms. You need a lot of citrine, man. You need so very much of it because it's so important and so many things. The Sect library is so important, and most of it is going to be using either the citrine or the contribution itself. So in library, you can actually swap at the bottom right here to Alchemy, and this is basically where you're going to get your recipes for making equipment, making pills, very important stuff. Thankfully, contribution is a lot easier to generate than citrine, so you're probably not going to struggle there, but you are going to need to be very specific about the recipes that you buy, okay? So it doesn't really split the recipes, because further down I can't actually scroll, which is kind of annoying. But you can actually buy Corporia and Magicka stuff, and if you're Magicka and you accidentally buy a Corporia thing, that can be a massive waste of contribution points, because obviously you're not going. What's the point, right? What's the point? But the difference comes when, for example, on my main, I actually have a Corporia chestplate because it gives me increased physical defense, because that's what I'm lacking. But that's a different kettle of fish, because that's much later game, and you're going to have just started, and it's just not worth spending what little that you have on something that's not got enough stats to make that much of a difference to begin with, you know? It can even be an option to completely skip the earlier levels of equipment and just buy a couple of them, because you're going to smash through the early levels pretty damn quick up until Incarnation. Incarnation Plus is really when the game begins in earnest, I suppose. But that's basically Sect in a nutshell. Abode, now, this one can also be kind of complicated, but breaking it down, it does end up being quite straightforward. Alchemy and Forge Room, let's start with them. Those are very straightforward. Forging, you have to select your blueprint as well as if you've got the materials for it. Every single thing you craft is going to cost you spirit stones. When you make stuff, you get XP, and you absolutely want to be leveling your forging and your alchemy as much as possible. So make stuff even if you don't need it, but do not use white. Don't use white materials. I even say don't use green materials, but honestly, that'd be hypocritical of me, because I use green materials just to get XP. It's worth it. It's worth it once you reach a certain point. It's just worth it. But I'll explain why you don't use white materials in a little bit. Now, you're not going to see anything here. You can see I obviously have like a crap load of stuff to make here, but you're not going to see that unless you get the recipe from the library. So just pick and choose your recipes wisely. It's important, okay? Why do I have Corporia stuff? You know, it's a waste. Realistically, that is a waste of contribution. But I didn't know what I was doing. That's just the way it goes, man. Alchemy is much the same. You really want to be making as many pills of your level as possible. At least cultivation-based pills as possible. Same thing goes for pills that are actually for breaking through, because you do have breakthrough pills that are going to be required. Garden is another one that's kind of important. This one is kind of hard to tell you what to do for, because it's so expensive. So when you first start, you're only going to have a few slots here, and it costs Fatium to increase it. So that gets really damn expensive really, really quickly. I do recommend that you unlock quite a big area early, because the further you get, the more avenues for spending Fatium that are going to unlock, and it's hard to justify spending a lot of Fatium here because it's already up to 600. 600 is heaps, man, but it's worth it because you can grow things here. On the way to Incarnation, the things you're most likely to grow are basically going to be the items that actually help you increase the percentage of getting something rare. So, Milia's Soul Tree, for example. So even though that says an hour there, the higher the level of the seed itself, the longer it's going to take to go through its stages. I'm pretty sure this one only has 2 stages. Yeah, so white quality and green quality. The higher level you get, it can go up to yellow quality, and that can take days to make. But the point here is that you can get those seeds and then grow them, and then it will help you. It will help you make purple equipment and possibly legendary if you're really lucky. You see I've got a 1% chance there of making it. That's going to change depending on whether I change the material type. When I do purple, it's 3.6. But it's still not a lot depending on how you're going to source those materials. You do get quite a few of them just from doing the story missions and milestone rewards and stuff like that. But just be very specific about how you use them, and try to only use them with high level materials, because it's kind of not worth it using it with anything below purple, because it's not that much of an increase in getting one of those wonderful yellows, aka a legendary. Now the other thing you can make with alchemy is stat pills, and they are going to be tough to make because it's kind of hard to get that amount, especially when you're growing plants that are actually going to be for helping you make items, because you're not going to have the space. It's going to be hard for you to grow plants that are purely for stat pills, especially when you first start. Stat pills are such a small amount of power, But by the time you reach high level, one of those pills is worth millions of battle power, I'm telling you. I'm not saying focus on it massively now to the detriment of your equipment, but just bear that in mind. The exponentials in this game are absolutely crazy. Now, pet. This is rather simple. You are going to just want a pet that does what you do. You can aim for a pet that does the opposite. So if you're magic, you get a pet that's physical. You can do that. I don't see the problem with it personally. But just bear in mind, in your array, this is the array, and by the time you reach incarnation, you'll have 3 pets that you can possibly take to battle. Don't do that, okay? Just focus on one. Just focus on one that has the highest starting stats, because you are absolutely never in a million years going to have enough resources to level anything more than 1 pet to any extent that will actually help you anyway. There's no point in having 3 pets that are 2 major realms under you. That's just cannon fodder. It's not going to help you at all. You want a pet that's at least enough to tank a few hits from something your level. That's what you're aiming for here. But 1 pet is the absolute max. The absolute max. Now, clone, I can't actually go into it yet, but by the time you reach Nascent Soul, you'll be able to unlock a clone. It costs a lot of spirit stones to unlock and level a clone, and you will need your clone to be incarnation early in order to ascend to the spirit world. Let me tell you now, that's very, very expensive, and you are going to want to save spirit stones to do it. So try every day to at least have a little bit more spirit stones from them when you started, because that's just the easier way to do it than reaching the point of needing to ascend and not having the spirit stones to do it. But this actually ties into the white materials I was talking about earlier. Strongly recommend that you just sell the white materials, because it's actually quite a bit of extra money. And then if you're really hurting for money, sell the green materials too. But don't ever sell blue and above. They are just too useful and too much XP for your either alchemy or forging. And with that being said, never ever ever sell any cores of any rarity. Use every single one of them, because you can feed your pet those pills that you don't use. So when you go up a major realm, you have pills that you haven't used, you can just use them and you can level up your pet. And pets are very expensive to level. And with that being said, they have their own talent trees as well that will use the pet essences that you get from the Beastmaster from the pet eggs. That's important too, and it's also another reason why you can't have more than 1 pet. It's so expensive, man. Same thing with skills. As the pet levels up, it gets more skills. You are going to need many demon roots at all levels of the game, so make sure you always buy that in the market, okay? You never want to be caught slacking on demon root. It's important. Aptitude is another thing. For each 1 aptitude it gains raw stats. It's got a max cap. For example, here it's 3,100 max cap. If I max that out, this babe toys would be several 100,000 power stronger. So this is another important thing to focus on. It's kind of hard to get wisdom pills though. It's complete random drop from the treasure trove, but you are going to get quite a few of them. And again, or at least when you first start, you're going to get quite a few of them. But again, you're never going to have enough to level more than 1 at once until you reach a very high level. A very high level. The Magicka itself. Respira is basically, it's a little bit of extra cultivation base, and you get a certain amount of attempts every day. That can change depending on the techniques you have and stuff like that. It's good to have as many Respira attempts as possible, because that's just extra cultivation base a day. But the main thing here is using pills. You want to use at least blue pills and above, and that's hard to do when you first start. But that's also part of the reason why I say to at least buy 2 of those pill cultivation bags from Fatevillion. It makes such a difference, man. It's a minimum purple, and you sometimes get legendaries. And they're cheap for that price, man. They are cheap as hell. Make sure you get them. But the only other way to get these pills is making them. And to make them, you need to farm materials in order to get the materials to make them. So you need to log on a couple times a day in order to get the most out of your materials, because you can only AFK for up to 13 hours here. But every level is going to have a certain amount of G levels, shall we say. I'm at Virtuoso late. I wonder if I could just pop through to Nascent Soul real quick. No, I can't, can I? Bugger. Come on, man, I'm recording. Fine. But if I was to get through to Nascent Soul, I'd be going back to G1, and then I'd have to get up to G7, for example, again, and then I'll get into middle. Each major realm you go up, there is a greater amount of G stages between early, middle, and late. That's just something to keep in mind. The further you get, the longer it's going to take. That's logical, right? But I mean, it's exponential, so it's tough. Make sure you always level your G stage as soon as it's possible. Because if you're a free-to-play, you're going to benefit from something called Strive, and that is basically you get extra cultivation base, you get extra spirit stones, and it's based on your level versus the highest level in the server. And let me tell you, whales, they produce cultivation base on a different level, so you're always going to be under-leveled compared to them. But because of that, you're going to get a massive bonus in cultivation base generation as well as money generation. But you only get that if you're not about to go up a G stage or a major tribulation stage. So always make sure that you're as high level as possible. Don't let it sit there. Don't let it go up past 100%. Make sure it's leveled. I love how mine's 3,982%. Whatever. Now, the energy array. This is what I was talking about earlier with the Celestine. This will change as the levels go up, but it's basically increases your cultivation-based generation. It's pretty easy to level this if you're a relatively active player, because you're going to farm each area pretty easily, let's be honest. Because each area in your realm is going to give you different materials. Materials for cores, materials for pills, and materials for equipment. But each area gives you different materials for equipment, so bear that in mind when you try and make something. I forgot to mention it earlier. When you try and make something, make sure you're farming the area for the materials for it. It's easy to forget that. And then you try and make something and it's like, why do I have none of this material but 2,000 of that material? It happens. It's happened to me. But point is, this will max out at 51, I believe. But you want to make sure this is as high a level as possible. So basically, as soon as you unlock the ability to farm these things, this is where you want to spend the most time just to get the energy array over and done with, because it's going to massively increase the speed at which you get to incarnation. Don't neglect this. It's important. It's very important. Because once it's maxed, it's done, and you're benefiting from it as early as possible. That's the aim here. And also, just a side note, in Garden, you will have a gardener, and he can upgrade levels, right? And every level he gets a new effect. Like, it increases the watering effect, which will reduce the time it takes to grow plants. He can give you a chance of getting an extra plant, lower the time in total it takes to even grow a plant. So it's absolutely important to level him too, because he only levels by when he pops up here, the gardener, and he can only take these items, which is, you can get them from the market based on your level, but sometimes you will have to grow it from a seed. It is what it is, but you want to do it because it's the only way to actually gain friendship with him, and it's invaluable to have him as high a level as possible, basically. Now, lastly, there's a few more things to cover. We're almost done, I swear. This pack area is mostly for pay to win, but you will get this stage breakthrough thing. So every time you get to a new milestone, you will actually get a amount of Fatium, which is very nice. It does make a difference, and there is a few free things here. Once a day you'll get a free pack, and once a week you will get a free pack here. So it's worth going in there and checking that. I actually think that the 100 Fatium pack is worth it, and I often get it, because Forge Stone to level up equipment to the next tier is very rare, and Soul Dust by middle to later game is also quite rare. So I consider that worth getting, but I mean, that's a personal decision there. Now, just quickly into weekly events. This is relatively straightforward, and you will be able to farm the items for weekly events, both from your weekly tasks and just general milestones in your sect and stuff like that. But just bear in mind, when these weekly events first start, if you can't reach the first milestone in them, don't bother doing it, because it's kind of not worth it. And we're just going to go on to the final thing here, technique. Up to probably R3, you will have maxed out all of this, just because it's easy and it's cheap. So, and they're good in general, to be honest. Base Abode Aura, Cultivation, Pill Effect, all of that is good. Now, by the time you reach R4, you're going to start realizing, well, damn, I don't have enough technique guides to level all of these. Because when you actually even want to learn a new technique, it requires technique guides. They are hard to farm early game, which makes using them incredibly important. And I'm not going to try and sit here and explain every single tier of them. What I am going to say is that the most important one by far are Abode aura bonuses, Cultivation pill effects, and damage to Taoists. Now, even if you unlock a technique, you don't have to max it, okay? So for example, just to learn this is 2 technique guides, right? But just learning it gives you the Cultivation pill effect plus 1%. So on my main, I have this, but I've never leveled it. I just wanted that on learning thing, because that plus 1% makes a massive difference. Same thing here. Base Abode aura plus 1%, Respira effect, daily cultivation pill attempts plus 1. That's amazing, because obviously that's an extra pill a day that you can take if you're capable of creating enough good pills to take, you know. But that's another amazing one. The point is, some of the ones that just simply don't matter, Spirit Stones from Realms, monster damage reduction, damage bonus to monsters, that's not really necessary, you know, and it's not worth leveling, realistically. So just bear that one in mind. Only really aim for percentage increases to either your damage reduction, specifically damage reduction and damage increase to Taoists and from Taoists, and specifically Cultivation pill effects and base Abode aura bonus. Those are the best ones, by far. It's not even a fight. Focus on those ones. By the time you reach R4, it will absolutely make a difference in your PvP life. Oh my god, my voice hurts. Okay. I think I covered quite a lot of it. I feel like I've missed some things, but I guess we'll find out. Whew, I hope this helps some people. It's a complicated game on first look, but you sink into it pretty quickly. If I have missed anything and you've reached this point, leave it in the comments below for other people to read, because, you know, part of what we do here is we help people. That's what we do. And again, join the Discord. We have an Overmortal area for it. That was the point of it. And there's plenty of people willing to help you with any questions that you might have, including myself. I'm obviously in my own Discord. Come on now. But the link is in the description there. I need to go and rest my voice now. I am dead. But don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Enjoy your time in Overmortal, and I hope to see you in the Discord. As always, have a great day.